Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, November 26th meeting of the St. Charles County Council. To begin with, for invocation, Mr. Gross, would you come forward and lead us in the invocation, please? Please rise.
Madam Chair, members of the council, and our audience, today, a good friend, co-worker, one of our great directors, and a public servant, Gil Copley, was laid to rest. He's survived by his wife, Janet, daughter, Jessica, another daughter, Elizabeth, and son, Robert. Gil was, like I said, not just a director, but he was just a great guy. Gil served in the public health area for virtually all of his life after his tour in Vietnam, to which he was awarded the Purple Heart, came back to this country, again dedicating himself to public service, serving as in various positions in St. Louis City Health Department before he came out to St. Charles County in 1996, and has been there ever since. It was a quick loss, and yet an extremely painful one for all of us. If we could ask for a moment of silence, please. We'd appreciate it in memory of Gil. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Cronin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Nancy Matheny.
Here.
Councilmember Paul Wynn. Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Jerry Darty.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here.
First item on the agenda is public comments. During public comments, you can talk about anything on the agenda or not. We ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes and keep them civil. Once we open a topic, we will stay on that topic until we have exhausted the speakers to that topic, the maximum being 3 pro and 3 con on any one topic. That being said, is there anyone here to speak this evening? Yes, sir. And when you come forward, please state your name and your address.
My name is John Kajar, and I live at 808 McKinley in Alton, Illinois. And I'm the applicant for Bill 3906. And I'm just here tonight in case there's any questions to be answered about it. Also wanted to inform you that since the last meeting, I've spoke with another property owner in the area, Rich Williams, and he also signed my petition. And if you guys would like an updated copy of the petition, I could get that to you. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. And I believe you said that was on bill number 3906. Is that correct? Yes, 3906. Is there anyone to speak in opposition to bill 3906?
Drew Weber with Hazelwood and Weber, 200 North 3rd Street. Madam Chairman, members of the council, if it pleases the council, like I said, my name is Drew Weber, and I represent Darden Realty Company. And Darden Realty Company is a neighboring property owner to the Kajar property. And there's 3 issues from the meeting last time which I'd like to discuss. The phased development of this property, the history of violations from Mr. Kajar, and then the neighbor's consent or purported consent in the petition that you have to this development. The original plan, as you know, was for 81 sites. Then it was cut down to 50 and then cut down to 14 to avoid needing to construct any bathroom or shower facilities on the property. And Mr. Kajar, in his letter to the county or to the council, stated that if the council would consider this amended application for approval, this would allow us to see how the public responds to this project. So it's clear that he plans to develop this campground in phases, presumably because approval of a phase like 14 at a time, let's say, is much easier than approval of 81 sites. It is difficult to stop further expansion of a project once it is already underway. And there's a real issue of the history of violations with Mr. Kajar. In Mr. Wayne Anthony's email to the council, that was presented at the last meeting, he said that 14 tickets have been issued to Mr. Kajar. And there's no reason to think that that will not continue. The mere fact that he's attempted to remedy these recent violations, that does not indicate that he will not continue violating the code in the future. And then what we'll have is this repeating process where there's violations of the property, and then he wants something from the council, like another 14 sites, let's say. And then he remedies the violations each time he wants something, then it slips into disrepair. And then there's also the petition. The petition last time had 23 signatures. I guess it has 24 now. The last petition, 12 of the addresses of the signatories were nowhere near this property. I looked them up on Google Maps. They're miles away. 7 of them were near the property, but 5 were from the one boat harbor, which I question whether that's really neighbors. And then 4 either listed no address or I just couldn't make out what the address was. But so there's no evidence to support a suggestion that 80% of the property owners support this. And it's also not clear what exactly was told to the property owners. It may be that people are in favor of 14 campsites, but if you say 50 or 81, then that's an entirely different story. And so it's all part of this phase development, try and get things done, get his foot in the door. Then once his foot in the door, it's hard to get back out. So in short, Darden Realty Company still opposes the approval of this application, and we recommend that the council deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't tell if the timer went off on that one or not. Okay. Okay, very good. Is there anyone to speak in favor of 3906?
Hello, my name is Matthew Mangan. My address is 130 Piper Road, O'Fallon, Missouri. I'm in favor of it because it's improving the sites down there. It gives access to the boat marinas that are in the area. It gives a place for people to stay and not have to drive home on weekends, drive home every night to come back to use the facilities. I think it's just a really good facility and a good idea for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition of 3906?
Thank you. I was here at the last meeting and it was very pleasant and so well organized with everybody. The organization of the campgrounds on Route C by the river are very pleasant. And the sites are large, the grounds are being well kept, and there is continuous work in the area to make it even better and better. And I'm very happy to have a place, as I live in St. Charles at Cactus Trailer Court, which I'd just soon be someplace else other than Cactus Trailer Court for basic living quarters. And I am enjoying it very much, and the people. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be the third speaker in favor of 3906. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition? Opposition only. Okay, that concludes that topic. Is there anyone to speak on any other topic this evening?
Good evening. My name is Chet Boki. I live at 3114 Arrow Rock. I'm here this evening because of a news story. I'm sure you're aware of it. I believe it's Channel 2 on the insurance you all get. Everybody looks like they're curious of what I'm about to say. Well, you know, not everybody's a fan of Elliott Davis, but if he does bring the facts, then I have a right as a citizen under a Constitution to question it. I understand that you all even including Paul Wynn, who is overseas, obviously gets free health insurance as a part-time politician. In the total, I understand it varies from alderman or councilman to councilman, but apparently it's over $50,000 a year. And if I'm mistaken on any of this, please interrupt me and stop me. So taxpayers are paying apparently $50,000 a year for your health insurance. And I know a lot of people are not real crazy about Obamacare, but this is a hell of a lot better. I would like a written response or notification, means we don't respond back and forth here. I don't know what ordinance this was introduced in, when it was started, who introduced the bill, who voted for it or against it, and whether it's even justified per se. You know, a lot of people, especially in today's world and economy, would very much love to have insurance as a part-time employee or elected politician. You know, some of the figures here is roughly $14,000 a year is what I assume you all make. And apparently, some of them are like almost $12,000 a year matching funds, you might say, for the insurance alone. So that's $25,000 a year. You know, I was a little upset when we had Paul Wynn, who I like personally, decide to take a job out of this country, yet he still got paid every month as a councilman. And you can't physically be here to take care of people's problems, but that's the way that went. Hopefully it's changed. But I just want people to be aware who watch this, and maybe you aren't here tonight. Obviously there's no public outcry, so I guess you could either consider you're good with it, they're happy, or maybe they just don't know about it. But I'll leave it at that. You know, I just would like the response of when this was put into effect and why. Well, I understand why. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else to speak on employee health insurance? Is there anyone to speak on any other topic? Mr. Dienoff.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, or Chairwoman, I'm sorry. Good evening, members of the council. A.C. Dienoff, county resident. Today is a sad day in our county. Unfortunately, the passing of Kil Copley, our county health director, I was wondering if we could take a few moments to make this outstanding citizen of our county and an outstanding department director. In the last 6 months, he gave me some very great encouraging words, and he is one of the most kind, gentlest, patient, caring, kind soul and a human being that our county has to offer. And I was wondering if we could take a moment of silence to memorialize his passing. Would that be okay?
It's your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Also, what I'd like to speak about is Bill number 3911. 3911 deals with increasing fees at the County Youth Activity Park on Highway N in the city of Darien Prairie. At the last meeting, if I recall, a council member requested the Director of Parks and Recreation to come up with a spreadsheet to say exactly what the fees are currently, what the fees are purported or proposed to be, and a percentage of what the change is. To my knowledge, that hasn't been complied with, and it hasn't been given to the council members that I've contacted. I also contacted the county council staff, and they said there's no such document. I contacted the finance office, haven't been able to get a hold of anybody at that office yet. I left 2 messages with the Parks Department today because of the holiday, haven't gotten a response or an email back with the document, and I called the county executive's office, and there was no response, or the document hasn't been located. I think if I read these increase in fees, I think it's wrong to increase fees on the backs of children of our county, especially when we're trying to get kids off the street and provide them with decent, wholehearted recreational activities. If you look at the Park Revenue Fund, it's doing outstanding. It's one of the best funds that this county has in terms of resources and operating capital. It has a huge reserve balance in it. And so what I'm asking is, we need to hear the facts. We need to hear from the Director of the Parks and Recreation about the spreadsheet and the financials, and why are we increasing the fees on the backs of children of the community. It's a great thing that the Parks Director and the County Executive withdrew the $43,000 marquee digital display. I think that would be a total waste. I think it'd be spent in other ways. But to increase it on kids, I think we need to look at it, and I'm asking that the council table this Bill 3911 so we can hear from the director and we can make sure that all due diligence is done, and it's not right to raise fees on kids when we're trying to provide good services for them, and especially with the operating reserves and the capital that the Parks Fund is generating. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dienhoff, and thank you for your kind words from Mr. Copley. We will miss him greatly. Is there anyone else to speak on the youth activity park fees? Is there anyone to speak on any other topic? Okay, public comments are closed. Next on the agenda is the oral report from the County Executive. Mr. Ellman?
Madam Chairman, I have no formal report, but as you noticed on the consent agenda, we have two very important appointments, and just want you to know that Mr. Lomar is here, as is Mr. Doherty. So I recommend them both highly to you, and I'm sure Mr. Lomar would answer any questions anyone on the council would have.
Okay, thank you. Would you care to give any kind of introduction or background to Mr. Lomar while you have the floor?
Well, known Tim since he was a Little League baseball player, I believe, and knew him when he was in high school. He's an athlete at West. I know Mr. Hollander's had some contact with him there. Went on, I think, University of Missouri and law school, and ironically, when I became a judge in 2001, the very first trial I ever had was Mr. Lomar representing the plaintiff, I think, or the defendant. And it was a dog case. And it was a case where a boyfriend had, well, I guess that was the issue, bought a dog and gave it to his girlfriend, and then they broke up. So the legal issue was whether it was a gift or something that they owned in common. And being the romantic that I am, I gave the dog to the girl, and partly because he did a really super job of representing her. But his professional qualifications, as you know, he served as the judge in our municipal court, the first judge in our municipal court for 3 years. He was a prosecutor for the city of St. Charles. He's served with my wife on the community college board for 9 or 10 years. So he's been in a position where he's had to make some tough decisions, and he's really going to a position now where he's going to have to make some tough decisions in the future. I know that you were involved in the selection process, and I appreciate the time that you spent on that. And the one thing that everyone was concerned about is making and keeping our neighborhoods safe in this county. That's been one of the keys to our growth and our success, and I think will be a key to our future. We have got to we've got to have tough law enforcement, and we've got to have tough prosecution. And I think Tim will do a great job in prosecuting those criminals and keeping this the kind of community that he grew up in, and that all of us are raising our families and growing our businesses in.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed?
Madam Chair, I'd like to remove the highway bid for, actually, I think it's a change order, number 1, the CBB. I've got a couple questions for Mr. Refsu.
Okay, so it's the first item under transportation?
There's quite a bit in that packet. It's a CO number 1.
Okay.
The second one, right, John?
It's actually on page 41. I'm assuming it
Okay.
would...
Let's just remove both items under transportation until we get, okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Is there anything else to be removed from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove the appointment for Floodplain Vision Board.
Second.
I wasn't sure we were going to second that, but okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The first item removed, transportation. Mr. Cronin.
I read through all this, and having a business right up the street from one of these interchanges, I've been to all the meetings in the city of O'Fallon regarding these interchanges. And what I see with this is option 14 at O'Fallon is favoring. We're spending money to CBB to take a look at one-way service roads along that portion of the highway that's going to get the new interchanges. And today I called a car dealer in St. Peters, and because I heard that there was some opposition in St. Peters with one-way service roads, and they kind of echoed that they were really concerned about this. So my comment is, I understand you all want to study this, but I think a lot more meetings need to be held with the businesses along those service roads before that decision is made. And I understand as traffic engineers, you guys are concerned about eliminating traffic. But as a businessman myself, I can tell you traffic's important to a lot of businesses. And one of the first things a commercial realtor will give you when you're looking at a piece of commercial property is the car count that's going by the front door. So, John, I guess what I'm saying is I see we're spending money to study one-way service roads, and it's a proposal. But there's a council member from O'Fallon's here that is not real wild about it. I hear the same thing from some St. Peters aldermen and some St. Peters businesses. So all I'm asking is that all those, besides eliminating the traffic, we also look at the needs of those businesses along those service roads, because if their traffic is cut in half, that could be detrimental to their businesses. So I don't know if you've got, if you've got some explanations on it. It's on what I'm referring to is on page 41 of the packet.
Okay, Mr. Brazel, you had a question also.
John, I got some questions for you. I too got some calls from some business owners in that area on 70. On what we're approving tonight is an engineer study, or is it actual plans, or what exactly is it?
Okay, well, we have on the change order 1, which is the CBB professional services for I-70 at Sunbelt Road interchange, which is $17,150. What's occurred there is that we have a contract with the city with the county and the city of St. Charles to evaluate various options at Sunbelt Road and that interchange. We initially did that about 2 years ago. And as part of the study, one-way was considered down at Sunbelt Road, as well as two-way and a single-point urban diamond, all kinds of various options. And there's been a series of public meetings. And during one of those public meetings, there was a couple ideas that came out down at Sunbelt Road that we didn't have enough funds to fully evaluate. So this is a change order for this $17,150 is to evaluate another idea at Sunbelt Road interchange. And that's isolated to that Sunbelt interchange. The second change order, which is with Horner and Schifrin for the Cave Springs interchange for $27,281, is for services associated with engineering services with the Cave Springs interchange up through Mid-Rivers Mall Drive. And that one most commonly has been referred to as a one-way outer road project. That's been in the paper several times that St. Peter's met with. You mentioned the auto dealerships. That particular project there for $27,000, what we're looking at is additional modeling to further evaluate some slip ramps and locations and ideas that we've also received during the public engagement process. Both of these are just that, they're engineering studies. Between Cave Springs and Mid-Rivers Mall Drive, when we present the transportation improvement plan, our 3-year transportation plan, and the budget for next year, there is money set aside for a project there to construct, and it is funding that's associated with a one-way solution, if that's ultimately the solution that's approved. But in what we're looking at tonight, that's not what we're considering. These are just engineering funds to further evaluate and study alternatives.
Okay, but reading this directly from CVB, it says specifically, this review would compare a modified option 14 with an optimized one-way outer road alternative, and this is O'Fallon's interchange that they're referring to. So, I mean, what I'm getting at is, if you're looking at it as an alternative, and they talk about Texas turnarounds, and I'm familiar with them, having family in Texas, but I guess what I'm asking, is this just an alternative you're looking at? What I don't want to hear down the road is that we spent all this money for engineering and we're going to go with one-way outer roads, you know, to the possible detriment of some of the businesses along that area. So, I mean, can you enlighten me there? That why it would be in there like that?
What you're referring to, which makes this even more complicated, which I apologize for. That change order 1 is CBB is what the change order is for. On page 41, I don't know exactly where you're at that, but that's on the Horner and Schifrin. CBB is serving as a sub to them, and as part of the Horner and Schifrin contract, which is looking at the one-way service roads from Cave Springs to Mid-Rosemont Drive, they are also looking at the corridor in general, which does include part of Route K and SR 79 on how would the overall system work together. So at Route K, there's option 14, as you've heard, is a divergent diamond interchange versus how would it function, how would a divergent diamond work if you have one-way outer roads elsewhere in the corridor. And if it works well, that's great. If not, we need to have that information of how is this all going to play together. As a county, as we look on the I-70 corridor in general, it's a corridor that's really showing some age. It's about 56 years old. As the Blanchette Bridge is being redone because it was built in the 1950s. The rest of the corridor is about that same age. You have the outer roads that are paced really tight to your main line, and you have development that's occurred. And in St. Charles County, our outer road system's not contiguous. So you have sections where we have missing pieces of outer road. You have the signals of those outer roads right on top of the main line, so that causes congestion. And something when we've done business surveys in the past, and as part of these studies, what we've realized is that congestion at these interchanges is affecting the viability of the whole corridor. You can see those businesses, but you can't get to them, especially during points of congestion. So it's good to have traffic, but when the traffic's packed so tight that you got to choose your lane when you're on I-70 to where you're going to go when you get to Cave Springs and Mid-Rosemont Drive, because you're in this herd and you can't get through the interchange, that's when it becomes detrimental. And you see that signs of that, especially in the Cave Springs area. When you look along the corridor, you see a lot of black windows, dark windows. Incredible Pizza, which used to be Burlington Coat Factory, which used to be HQ, is now vacant again. The Holiday Inn, which was a beautiful place back in the 80s, is sitting dormant where they had 5 reservations last weekend. These are signs of an economy that you need to start looking at what are the root causes. And part of that is transportation. And that's what the heart of these studies on I-70 has been about over the last couple of years, is looking at what are those root causes and how can we fix some of those causes. And one of the solutions is, can we get better access? If on any road that we go drive down, what I hear number one from businesses is give me a bigger driveway. Give me 2 driveways instead of 1. And for example, between Cave Springs and Mid-Rosemont Drive, right now you have 2 interchanges. A one-way with slip ramps allows you to create several entrances on and off of that freeway. And those are the opportunities that in the next meeting when we actually talk about a transportation improvement plan and construction funds, I'll go into more details on. And we can explore that a little further, why some of these solutions I think will lead to better economic conditions for the businesses in the corridor. Businesses are number one along I-70. I agree with you. We have to make sure that those businesses not only continue to do well, but the vacant ground along the corridor, which if you look along I-70 within a mile, 25% of that ground is vacant. 5% of it is sitting with buildings built and the lights turned off. That's 30% of the ground within a mile of I-70 underutilized in St. Charles County. That's a big number. especially when you compare that nearly 50% of our sales tax revenue comes within a mile of I-70. So when we have room for growth, it's on the I-70 corridor, and this is what these projects are all about.
Mr. Brazel, go ahead.
John, when you say this study, does it study include the impact it may or may not have on the businesses that are currently open, like the car dealers? Will it include that, or is it strictly traffic flow?
It's focused around, the initial thought of these studies when we started them about 2 years ago was about business. How do we get more activity on these corridors? Whether it be the auto dealerships, whether it be, if you go to Zumbel, and that's what change order one's looking at, is you have a three-story office building that's been built about 5 years ago that's been sitting vacant. How can we get businesses that are going to be, that have these great spots of visibility, high visibility, to get people wanting to move into this corridor and continue to grow businesses? So in the auto dealerships, we've had a lot of conversations with them throughout the last several years.
Okay, so the question is, a study will include the factual data on if this is a benefit to them or is not a benefit, correct?
Correct, it will.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I mean, I'll support it. I just want to make sure that it covers that, because I was told that St. Peter's, did they put a resolution opposing this?
There's been a rumor that they've considered that. It's been in, there's been, as with any of these situations, they have not introduced it. They have not introduced it. They've talked about it at a work session. A handful of the Board of Aldermen members have talked about it at a work session, but they have not introduced it. It has not been come up for a vote. And actually, in the last several weeks, we received letters of support from several of the auto dealerships. As you start talking to the auto dealerships, it's an interesting business dynamic. It's almost like you're selling hamburgers, but very expensive hamburgers. They want to have great access in and out of their business, but they also want to be located next to the competitors. Just like you have McDonald's want to be located next to a Wendy's. And so they all see there's some synergy by having this kind of this auto row or this grouping. But they also are very selfish in that they want to be the first business that the customer drives by so that they pull into their shop first. And so the location of any slip ramp is very critical. You know, if it's closer to business A and I happen to be the second in the row, I don't like that location. I want to be located a little bit closer this way. And that's what a lot of the discussion's been over. And we've had good conversations with every auto dealership on the corridor. Initially, it was 100% were 100 against one-way auto roads between Cave Springs and Mid Rivers. When you start explaining the additional access and how they can have better traffic circulation, someone take a test drive can actually slip onto the freeway, run up to Mid Rivers Mall Drive, make a U-turn and come back. They start realizing that there's some benefit to the overall corridor and the health of that corridor. So we've have, as part of the consultant team, Horner and Schifrin is the lead on the second one. CBB is a sub. There's actually 8 other sub-consultants under that contract. I've never had a contract that had 9 consultants working on it. Don't know if I ever want to have another contract that has 9. But one of them is a bit specializes specifically in business impacts and looking around the country on these conversion projects and what was the long-term impact of that. And so that's part of that team.
Mr. Cronin, did you get your questions answered?
Yes, but I just have one thing. The car dealer that I talked to, I'm not going to give my name, but brand new location, less than 5 years old, said the only plans that they saw were stuff that St. Peter showed them, and they just were there to listen to them and take comments. All I'm going to say is, please I would appreciate it if you would take their considerations. There's another large car dealer that I also heard was not very happy with it. I don't think the communication's getting back and forth between the car dealers and on this road project, and I think that might help the matter a lot. So I don't know how to facilitate that, but that's, I'm sure, something your department could probably do.
We will double back to not only the car dealerships, there's I forgot the number, but it's well over 100 businesses just between Cave Springs and Mid Rivers. We'll make sure that we double back and do our due diligence as we move forward and bring it to a decision.
I hear CarMax just bought property at the St. Peter's interchange also. So
they
we
did.
might get them in the mix.
That has created some friction between them and some of the other dealerships and this project in general, because it's a used car dealership versus a new car dealership. So it's been an interesting project as we move along.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was going to invite you to, if you're getting calls about this, to sit down with John. But he made about half of his presentation already. But I think the big thing here, and he touched on it briefly, is, we're not looking at a small section here. We're looking at the whole I-70 corridor. And those of you who are as old as I am, can remember when the St. Charles Rock Road corridor was a thriving commercial area, and it's not anymore. And to a certain extent, I-270 north in North County is seeing the same sort of deterioration. And we're starting to see a little bit of it here. And, we just want to be on top of this. We want to have a long-range plan that will better serve that entire corridor. Because like John said, 50% of the sales tax in the county is collected 1 mile either side of Interstate 70. And to have 30% of the corridor being unused is, I think, a big problem.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Transportation change orders. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item removed was the Floodplain Vision Board. Jerry Doherty, do you not want to be appointed to that?
No, the reason I wanted it removed was so that I could vote on the consent agenda and abstain from voting on that.
Wow. Very good thinking. Would somebody move to accept?
So moved.
Jerry, okay, and a second, please.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Madam Chair, there was not tonight a vote at the conclusion of removing these two items to accept the balance, so if you could move, someone could move to accept the balance. So I'm sure Judge Lomar would be very happy.
I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome, Judge. Next on the agenda is bills for final passage. Bill number 3905.
Bill number 3905, an ordinance granting conditional use permit 16217 for a bed and breakfast residence to Edward F. and Katrina R. Burke.
Are there any comments?
The only comment is this was passed 7-0 by planning and zoning. Staff approved it. There was a problem with the fence. I tried to get the planning and zoning meetings. It wasn't specific on the type of fence. Mr. Cronin verified that he talked to Mr. Anthony at the meeting and that a T-post was agreed upon. So as far as I'm concerned, everything's good with this.
Okay, and it was approved at planning and zoning unanimously. Any other comments or questions on 3905? Would you read the title and call the roll, please?
Bill number 3905, an ordinance granting conditional use permit 16217 for a bed and breakfast residence to Edward F. and Katrina R. Burke. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Matheny?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Doherty?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Bill passes. Bill 3906.
Bill number 3906, an ordinance granting conditional use permit 16423 for a campground to JOK's LLC.
Are there any comments or questions on this bill?
Madam Chair, I'd like to replace that with substitute Bill 3906.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to replace 3906 with substitute Bill 3906. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Are there any comments on substitute Bill 3906?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to ask Wayne to come up and go over the restrictions in this bill.
I'm going to try to summarize because there's a fairly long list. First of all, the right of entry allows the county to enter upon the property to inspect it to make sure, for example, these conditions are being met. Provides for seasonal use only, 180 calendar days out of the year that these sites could be used. The location of the camp or the sites for these 14 are pursuant to the site plan that is attached as an exhibit. That each RV will have to be licensed and ready for highway usage. That the condition that they not interfere with the easement which provides access to adjoining property, so they wouldn't be blocking that with the use of the facility as an RV site. That they would have a water supply system that would be pressurized and adequate for the needs of the 14 campsites. That they would have a sanitary sewage disposal system, which would either be a septic tank or an RV dumping station, one of the two. That they would provide solid waste disposal as already required in our ordinances under Section 240. That the sites be maintained pursuant to the property maintenance code. Additional vehicles that would be allowed on the site would be limited to 2 extra pieces of or trailers or a boat and a trailer combination, and that they would provide parking accommodations for all of the occupants or visitors to that site would be on that site. Supervision, that they're being required to provide supervision all the times that the campsite is occupied and in use, and that they ensure that it's being maintained and cleaned and kept in a sanitary condition at all times. No more than 14 sites. A gravel drive, 16 feet wide, would have to be provided. There would be privacy fencing or buffering along the side of the property that adjoins a residential piece of property immediately to the south of this subject site. And that this conditional use would be null and void in 2 years if it's not acted upon. So that's a very quick overview.
Thank you.
Are you finished, Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Cronin?
I have a question for Wayne, if it's okay. An adjacent property that these folks own, under maybe slightly different ownership, they started a rack storage system back in '04, and the permit was voided, and the rack storage system is still there. Okay, and my question is, if we approve this with all these conditions, okay, and they start this and they don't meet those conditions, okay, what's keeping that from happening just like the rack storage system that did on the other one? What's going to keep this from being a half-done development that sits there cluttering up the floodplain?
The Kajar property that you're referring to is actually the father of this applicant. The violations that we have on the site are not occurring on this subject site, except for they've already placed 4 RVs on the site a little prematurely. But all of the other violations, the 2 structures that have been substantially damaged since probably 1993, and a whole slew of other violations dealing with rubbish, a rack storage building that was built without a building permit. All of those violations are on an adjoining piece of property which happens to be owned by his father.
But is it conceivable that we could have the same problems on this property, because obviously we couldn't enforce the laws that were in effect on the adjacent property?
You could have violations on this property, and we will use to the greatest extent we can to enforce it. As I think somebody mentioned, we have a number of tickets already issued on the other violations in regards to the property, and ultimately have started the process of condemnation on the 2 structures that have been demolished. And so while it may take us some time to get to eventual conclusions, continually ticketing and ultimately using the other provisions of county codes, I think we'll be able to bring them into compliance. Fortunately, we have an easier time with some than we have with others.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Anthony, I have a question for you. This was voted down at Planning and Zoning, and that was with more campsites than are currently proposed, correct?
That's correct. The original petition was for 50.
Okay, and now we've cut down considerably to 13 or 14?
He has amended his petition for only 14.
Okay, and what if we wanted this to go back to P&Z for their look at it? Is that possible? I mean, how do you skirt going through that? I know because he lessened it.
Yeah,
I know.
He lessened it. He wouldn't have been able to ask for all of a sudden 60 once he comes to the council.
Right.
But if somebody, and whether it's this case or in other cases, we have had people reduce their request, and we have not caused them to go back through the system.
Okay.
I suppose you would have the ability to redirect this back to the commission to hear this new proposal if you wanted to. I just have not seen that done, and probably would have to have a little more legal guidance just to see how we
could ask for new advice from the commission if you so chose. The applicant, by being here now under a reduction in what they heard, is still under the same disability that it was turned down at the commission level, and so he needs a supermajority here. And if he does fail in this, then he's got a 12-month shutout period under the current ordinances on another conditional use, unless it's different terms that he's seeking. So,
if we directed it to go back to P&Z, though, would that avoid that 12-month shutout term?
No.
It wouldn't? He would still not be able to take it back?
If he loses this here, he would have to, on these terms, he could not come back to this council for a year.
Okay.
He could come back and ask for something different, 10 or 13, 12. Or 13.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Yes, Mr. Brazel.
This gentleman has done everything that the county has asked him to do. He's brought in petitions, he refiled. I mean, he's done everything he wants to do. He wants 14 campsites. If you guys are familiar with the river, it's a good use of that property. There's really not a whole lot else you can do with it. It's, and if you boat, which I used to boat a lot, it gives people an opportunity to have a recreational spot that's close to St. Charles. So I don't see why this is such a big deal. He asked for 50, that might have been too many, but 14, he's got a host of conditional uses that Jerry added that really tighten up this conditional use permit. So I don't know what else you want him to do. I mean, he's agreed to do all this stuff. So I'm not in favor of sending it to planning and zoning. I'm in favor of voting on it tonight, and it should pass, because this is good stuff for the county. This is recreational stuff. It's good positive energy stuff. I mean, so there's nobody that's complained about it but one person, and they brought about a lot of stuff that somebody else did, his father, whomever, but it's really irrelevant. This guy's trying to do his own thing. That's my opinion.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, Mr. Cronin, sorry.
For the record, though, there's letters at planning and zoning on file, okay? If you look at the property, it's C-shaped, the gentleman in the middle of that C, has publicly opposed this project because he literally has put $200,000 in a house that's going to be in the middle of a campground. As well, the Westhoff family, okay, I talked to one of them, the one had been coming to the meetings before, had hip surgery today, couldn't make the meeting, so there is some opposition to this in the area, and that's what Planning and Zoning recognized when they voted it down.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
In response to that, the T-shaped property is Larry Leckrone, and I've discussed it with him. He's already planted the trees for the barrier, and that gentleman, he's on board.
If there are no more comments, would you read the title and call the roll, please?
Substitute Bill Number 3906, an ordinance granting conditional use permit 16423 for a campground to JOK's LLC. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Matheny?
No.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Darty?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
No.
4-2, passes.
Fails.
Fails.
It needed a supermajority of 5.
Okay. All right, 3906 fails. Moving on to 3907.
Bill Number 3907, an ordinance granting conditional use permit 16525 for a nursery to Gail Sims.
On this one previously, Mr. Brazel, you stated that it's close to Highway N and Hopewell Road and that there's been no complaints to date and only support from the neighbors. Is that still true?
Yeah, it's a good fit for the area. I'm supportive of it.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, would you read the title and call the roll, please?
Bill Number 3907, an ordinance granting conditional use permit 16525 for a nursery to Gail Sims. Councilmember Matheny?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Darty?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Bill passes. Bill 3908.
Bill Number 3908, an ordinance amending Ordinance 110-096, granting conditional use permit 9491 for boat rental to Joseph T. and Kelly Brazel.
Are there any comments or questions? Would you read the title and call the roll, please?
Bill Number 3908, an ordinance amending Ordinance 10-096, granting conditional use permit 9491 for boat rental to Joseph T. and Kelly Brazel. Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Darty?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Abstain.
Councilmember Matheny?
Yes. Bill 3908 passes. Bill 3909.
Bill Number 3909, an ordinance amending Sections 405.060, 405.065, 405.080, 405.475, and 405.520 of the Unified Development Ordinance of St. Charles County, Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, and enacting a new Section 405.085 of the Unified Development Ordinance to authorize a new agricultural tourism district.
Okay, this bill, Joe Brazel has worked very hard on. It gives more latitude for the wineries in adding additional structures, and yet they're good structures. Joe, would you like to comment on this one?
Yeah, I would just like, again, thank Wayne. Him and Harold put a lot of energy into this. It gives the wineries a latitude to do other things, but it also makes the density, it controls the density to 8% of 40 acres. So you got to have 40 acres to do this sort of a development. And a lot of the wineries kind of are doing weddings and stuff, and it's kind of getting outside the realm of agriculture. So Wayne suggested that we do this. It already went through the Master Plan Review Committee. So this is actually a really good fit for the wine district. It hopefully will bring more tourism in, and it gives people an opportunity in some of the wineries to become somewhat like / lodges with the weddings and so forth, and they'll have lodging as well. So it's going to really hopefully move the wine district to another level.
That's great. Any other questions or comments?
I've got a few questions about it.
Mr.
Parts of
Doherty.
it are restrictive. For years, all we hear, we don't want to do nothing in the wine country. And now it seems like we're trying to open it up for building things and everything else, but we want it to look like Ladue. And then parts of this in here, it still mentions sod farms, marinas, houseboats, and everything else. And I want to be assured before I would vote for it that none of that's going to change as far as the floodplain, the harbors, and all that and everything. I would like to motion to table the bill until I got some time to talk to Harold and Wayne about it.
Well, I'm really not in support of tabling it, Jerry, because I spent over a year putting this together with Wayne and Harold and some of the wineries, and this has been on the agenda for over a month. So I don't know. And there are people who are wanting to try this business, and there are businesses that are possibly doing things that are outside the scope of their wine permit. So we're trying to get them in compliance as well. But I'll answer some of your questions. The agricultural district is not the wine district. If you want a winery, this is totally separate. If you want a winery, that ordinance remains the same. There's no changes in that whatsoever. What this is doing, and Harold or Wayne, if you want to jump in anytime, because you helped quite a bit on this. As far as there is a manual. Come on up here, Wayne, if you would. Wayne put together a book. I don't know if you have it with you, but it's a. Go ahead and explain that. What Jerry's talking about look like. What we're trying to do is, if people choose to go this route, it gives them a little more latitude, but it doesn't give them a little more. It restricts them to only 8% development of that 40 acres, and that's one thing we are very concerned about is the density. We don't want to increase the density of the ground. So you could choose to be a winery and do what the ordinance already has, and that doesn't change anything, or you can choose to go this AT district and have a little more latitude, but then you have a density issue. And then you have to fulfill the guide. The guide is the architectural guide, and that's your choices. So it gives you more choices, but you go ahead, Wayne, explain that. I think Jerry wants to know a little bit about the architectural guide that you put in there.
Well, I got a question on it.
Quiet. I thought you were doing pretty good. We instructed you well.
Well, just a quick example, Joe. I mean, you got this winery out here and everything, and he's got his vineyard and all that and everything, and he needs a shed to put his tractors and all that and everything, and you're telling him he's got to build it out of brick wood. He can't have a metal pole barn or roof or nothing else.
No, that's a very good point. All agricultural buildings are exempt from the architectural. If it's agricultural use for a winery or that issue, those buildings do not count for they don't have to be fulfilled in the manual, nor do they have to, are they part of the 8%. It's all the stuff associated with the lodging and the winery and that sort of thing. So excludes agricultural buildings.
Just to give you a very short overview, as far as permitted uses, this AT district would have a lot more limited permissive use section than your current agricultural. Basically, listing only agricultural types of uses, historic sites, golf courses, a few of those open space types of things, but a more restrictive set of permissive uses. The other conditional uses all relate to these winery tourism types of uses that would be permitted with conditional use permits. The minimum size for a parcel to be zoned and considered for AT would be 40 acres. The next important thing that this district requires, which is different from any other district that we have, is it will be subject to a very controlled site planning and architectural review format. The ordinance provides that only 7% of the 40 acres could be utilized for any of those conditional uses that are listed. The other 93% of the property can still be used for agricultural purposes. So again, we're trying to allow an integration of these other uses, but still keep the overall character of the site rural and agricultural in nature. The other thing that is required under the development standards for these conditional uses is some standards relating to having to have a common design theme, having to have gabled or pitched roofs, exterior walls with different types of materials, stone, brick, or wood, or a combination of some of those materials, not metal-clad buildings. Looking for various facade and roof features like bays and gables and dormers and overhangs, porches and porticos. A height limitation of 2 stories unless it's dealing with a place that's used for lodging. Again, the plans would be submitted and they would be reviewed as part of the conditional use permitting process. What we have done, and Joe was mentioning it, is while this is not a part of the law or the ordinance, but to help people understand what we're looking for, is we've developed an architectural and site design manual, which lays out some of the requirements within the ordinance, but also shows pictures of different architecture that we would find acceptable. Not that somebody has to follow that design manual, but we want to give people a little bit of a head start as to far as what we're thinking as a baseline. Somebody may have something that's totally different from the site plan, and we could find that it totally meets acceptability. But this is trying to provide some communication to allow somebody that is proposing a development a little bit of insight as far as what we're thinking about as far as architectural design of these places without mandating something. So that's a very quick overview.
All right, does that answer your questions? Mr. Hollander?
No, I think there's been a great deal of work done here. I was just going to second Jerry's motion if he wanted to table it to get more answers, but I think the project's been very thoroughly reviewed by Wayne and Joe.
Okay. I have a question, Joe. I know that we have one representative from a winery in the audience. Have you talked with all of the wineries?
Yeah, we had, and Bill can talk to that. He was the president of the Merchants Association, and we brought it up. We actually have been talking about this for several years.
Right.
This has been in work for over 2 years, and me and Wayne were trying to figure out how to do it and make it work, and Steve and some of us was involved in some meetings. So we've been working on this a long time to make it right. We wanted to do it right, and Bill is he's been helping, putting in his input in for the Defiance merchants and the wineries, and we've brought it up at several meetings, and everybody's either doesn't care or they're in favor of it. I haven't had anybody. You could ask him if you...
Okay, that's great. If there are no other comments, would you read the title and call the roll, please?
Bill number 3909, an ordinance amending Sections 405.060, 405.065, 405.080, 405.475, and 405.520 of the Unified Development Ordinance of St. Charles County, Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, and enacting a new Section 405.085 of the Unified Development Ordinance to authorize a new agricultural tourism district. Councilmember Daugherty?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Matheny?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Bill passes. And Mr. Schall, I know you're here, and thank you for all you do out there to make our county so much nicer. Next on the agenda, Bill 3910.
Bill number 3910, an ordinance approving execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for Phase 3, Missouri Route 364.
Questions or comments? Would you read the title and call the roll?
Bill
Oh,
number-
I should mention that there is an exhibit that's attached to this that is different from the original exhibit that was attached to the bill. If anyone has any questions on that, there were just a couple minor changes.
Bill number 3910, an ordinance approving execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for Phase 3, Missouri Route 364. Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Matheny?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Daugherty?
Yes.
Bill 3910 passes. Bill 3911.
Bill number 3911, an ordinance amending Section 250.500 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri relating to fees at county parks.
And I know, Mr. Cronin, you had some questions on this one. Did you get your questions answered?
Yes, I'd like to thank Betty for giving me all the information, and it was kind of hit and miss. We got it all together, though, this afternoon. Basically, I was concerned because these fees looked like the structure was going up significantly. But when you look through what way they've done it, they've actually kind of structured it more like a pool pass. The single event fees did go up some, but they get the option for $100. The family can sign up their kid for a year, or they can get a family membership for 5 kids for $185. So for the frequent users of the park, it actually is a better deal. And when looking at the financials for that park, the public's getting a pretty good deal anyway, because the fees amount to about $70,000 a year that are collected for that. But staff and supplies are $260,000, so a slight increase in revenue from the fees is something the county parks could probably use to make that park better. So I'd like to thank Betty for her help for making this decision for me, and I'm in support of it now.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Would you read the title and call the roll, please?
Bill number 3911, an ordinance amending Section 250.500 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri relating to fees at county parks. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Matheny?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Darty?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Bill 3911 passes. Bill 3912.
Bill number 3912, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a renewal of the license agreement with Ameren UE for county communications equipment on the Sioux Power Plant smokestack at a cost of approximately $3,947.85 per year.
Questions or comments? Would you read the title and call the roll, please?
Bill number 3912, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a renewal of the license agreement with Ameren UE for county communications equipment on the Sioux Power Plant smokestack at a cost of approximately $3,947.85 per year. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Matheny?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Darty?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Bill passes. Next on the agenda is announcements and miscellaneous. Are there any?
Excuse me, there's bill number 3913.
Oh, that's, okay. Back up. 3913.
Bill number 3913, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to sign a consent to annexations as requested by the City of St. Charles for annexation of a portion of South Main Street, and as requested by the City of O'Fallon for annexation of a portion of Mexico Road from the east right-of-way line of Guthrie Road east to the north right-of-way line of the Norfolk and Southern Railway.
Questions or comments? Would you read the title and call the roll, please?
Bill number 3913, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to sign a consent to annexations as requested by the City of St. Charles for annexation of a portion of South Main Street, and as requested by the City of O'Fallon for annexation of a portion of Mexico Road from the east right-of-way line of Guthrie Road east to the north right-of-way line of the Norfolk and Southern Railway. Councilmember Matheny?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Darty?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Bill passes. Now, announcements and miscellaneous.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the Elliott Davis interview, which I was so graciously signaled out, I've had several school teachers call and ask for apology from me, and I could have used a better choice of words, so to them I do apologize. As far as Mr. Davis, if he would air the entire interview, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. He did fail to inform the public that as far as my health insurance, I pay $189 every pay period. Councilman White, I think his is over $200 a pay period. He considers us part-time. For the past 4 years, I've worked an average of 35 hours a week. And that was my choice, but I don't consider that part-time. And I don't think there's very many elected officials or school teachers that would work 35 hours a week for $14,350 a year. That's the rest of the story. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd like to let everybody know that Defiance is having their Christmas walk. the 8th. It's on a Saturday. It starts at what time? 11, Tom? The parade? Noon. We have a parade, a Christmas parade. And so I'd like everybody try to come out there. All the business will be open. There'll be cookies and punch and stuff like that. And the wineries will be open. And Tom's the grand poobah of the parade. And and also Augusta will be having their Christmas walk on Friday night, the 7th, and also the following Friday night, which is also a nice event. And then also the Daniel Boone Home has their Christmas walk. So there's a lot going on in the wine country for Christmas. So just let everybody know.
Thank you. And I'll add to that, please shop local.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir.
At the last meeting, Councilman Brazel asked about the Darden Prairie and the basically the underpass there on Hanley Road. A couple days after that meeting, John Greifswald and I met with MoDOT, and they, of course, were interested in the issue. And John came up with the idea that the road board has already approved, I think, $2 million for improvements to Hanley Road beyond the Page Avenue corridor. And what he suggested to the mayor of Darden Prairie was that they could take that $2 million and forego those improvements for the short term and take that money and put it into this overpass. We ran it by MoDOT. It'll work for them. The mayor came and met with us and said that's what they'd like to do. So when you get your tip at the next meeting, you'll find that that money for widening Hanley Road has been deleted, and instead that $2 million will be available to put that underpass under Highway 40 so that the several of those buildings will have contact with the other side.
Okay, great.
That's very good. Thank you. Very good.
We also talked last time about any budget questions coming forth at the end of this meeting. If I hear any questions, I haven't seen emails going back and forth with questions either. We still have another meeting before we will be approving the budget, but please, if you have any questions when you're going through it, please bring them forth. If not at this meeting, at the next one. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
See you next time.